Hello. All right. We're going to get started in a little bit. We're getting everybody ready here. Give a wave out and get everybody going here. We're going to get September, who is going to be with us today. Her family court experience, dealing with a narcissist, and a number of other things. We're going to get her in here, and here she comes. We got it. We got it.
Oh,
I'm always intrigued with playing around with electronics because I'm not the greatest at it.
neither am
And,
I. I'm not
oh,
tech
okay.
savvy at all, so I just hope for
Well,
the best every time.
I know he's time. He's time. I try to have the overall confidence in myself to say, okay, this is gonna work. But I kind of go with the glitches as they come, kind of like life. You
Yeah,
kind of go with the glitches as they come. Thank you so much.
exactly.
You are 3 hours ahead of us because you're on the East Coast there. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving up your afternoon. It's right, afternoon, right? Yeah, your
Yeah,
afternoon starts.
yeah, it's like
Uh,
12:30 right now.
Morning time. It's it's a pleasure to have you, but I have to tell you, um, I'm reading over the notes the past couple of days from when we initially talked in the pre-show prep. Um, yours is a very touching story to me personally, when you start to talk about it, because it really does involve parent alienation. It
It does.
really does
Yeah,
involve, yeah, yeah, it does.
yeah.
The more I looked at it, it's beyond just the family court experience that you had, but the narcissist is definitely down and dirty and playing down and dirty.
And
Uh,
he's still at it. He did more this morning, so he's still at it, not giving up.
oh my, oh my
So
goodness.
I'm trying to
Okay,
disempower him by having a buffer between any communication that I do is going to go through a third
yeah,
party, and so that
okay,
'cause he takes stabs at me every chance he gets. So.
okay. So now, boy, now you piqued my interest because I know this. You said it just happened this morning, and then I was going to ask you. So since the last time we talked, what has happened? But yeah, this is this morning. So I'll exude some self-control, and I'll start
Okay.
this whole thing at the beginning. So let's give everybody kind of an overview. I'll do a little bit of an overview, and then I'm going to step out of the way. But you've experienced a number of different things, September. And by the way, yes, her name is September. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. So,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
so I'm just kidding. So September, again, an honor to have you. And you you no longer are with the narc,
No.
but the narc. Uh, the overview I'm starting with is that you're not with the narc, but the narc is still trying to create problems for you because he has a background as a lawyer. He is a lawyer, he is a lawyer, right? Okay,
Yeah.
and he's using that in a very sneaky, serpent-like, just disgusting way,
Yeah.
and keeping you from your children. And that's where I'm going to stop. Give everybody the beginning of how this craziness, this literal craziness, started.
The literal craziness. Where to begin? So we started dating. We started
Yeah.
dating.
That's why I gave it. That's why I gave it to you because I was going like, I'm looking at this and I don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's so many moving parts and pieces to the
Yeah,
story that it's like my
yeah.
head just it starts to explode. I've tried to
I
actually
don't.
write
I
things
don't
down
know.
for
I don't know how
myself.
you do it.
I
I don't know
don't
how you do it.
either. So we started dating. We just met, became friends, started spending time together, had a great time together, started
Yeah.
dating. He did a lot of the love bombing from him was very it was flattery. He used flattery. And
Okay.
I was craving that at the time, and so I needed that, and that worked on me. He didn't do the love bombing in the sense of like coming around all the time or sending flowers or any of those kinds of things. Those things would not have worked on me. I would have just been annoyed and
Okay.
been like, go away. But the flattery,
Yeah.
that worked. So that was
That
the
worked.
method that he used. He's incredibly intelligent, and that makes it even worse because he's very, very perceptive around people. And
Hmm.
he picks up on, you know, your weaknesses. He picks up on all of it very quickly. Um,
Right.
and so, you know, there were some definite red flags at the beginning, and I broke up with him 6 months into the relationship because I just saw
Wow.
a side of him that I didn't
Hmm.
like and that was not going to work for me. But the
Right.
interesting thing about that was that when I broke up with him, um, he got this like puppy dog look on his face, and that was what stuck with me for the next few weeks. Like while we were not together, it was like that look
Hmm.
that he got on his face when I said I don't want to do this. Um,
Right. Right.
and so I think I took him back out of pity, but it's an interesting dynamic because somehow he got me to ask to be in the relationship again, but it was I still did it out of pity for him. So it's a weird craziness, like you said. Um,
So if I may ask, he gave you a, as it were, a certain look. He had the flattery. He knew that you weren't a woman that weren't gonna fall for all the gifts. Some way he assessed that because he didn't come to you that way. But he had a look that worked on you. But you said that stuck with you for a while.
yeah, it was like a haunting stuck with me. Like it
Oh,
just
okay.
I
That's
can
why.
still see it in my head. I still see
Really?
it. Yeah,
Wow.
and that was, you
Because
know,
you
5, 6 years ago.
that's just crazy because you're such a I mean, we had a discussion. You're such a strong, wonderful person. It's amazing that he was able to get over like that. But no doubt he's had some practice in being that devious like that. So
Oh,
so
he's
it
had
stuck with you for he had practice. Go ahead. I'm sorry. So what happened after that? So the look and then it stuck with you for a few weeks.
so we ended up, you know, getting back together, trying again for the relationship. And
Right.
what was really interesting was I gave up all of my self-care practices at that point because I think I knew that if I kept taking care of myself, because I had spent, you know, a long time really working on myself, learning meditation, learning how to, you know, give myself the self-love that I needed.
Right. Right.
And when we got back into that relationship again, I gave it all up. I just stopped all of it.
Wow.
And I didn't do it consciously. It was just sort of I think inherently, instinctively, I just knew that if I kept doing that, I couldn't be with him. It had to be a
Huh.
choice. Either I took care of
What were
myself or I was with him.
what were some of the things, I mean, so maybe it'll help somebody else that's just starting in this process of being being abused this way. What are some of the self-care things you gave up that could be red flags for somebody else?
I did a lot of meditation. I've always been
Okay.
very big on meditation. And then I also did a lot of just studying myself. I learned a lot about my ancestors. I had spent a couple of years really focused on me and really focused on, you
Mhm.
know, just doing what I needed to do to take care of myself. So,
Right.
so that was what it was. And I kind of even gave up family relationships a little bit to a point. Like I just backed off from my family and
Right.
went to him instead. But it's
Wow.
interesting because none of it was conscious. You know, it wasn't conscious decisions. But looking back, like that's what happened.
Was it kind of gradual then, do you think? Did it kind of like you just slowly started spending more time dropping what you were doing for you and then just incorporating whatever he had going on or just being around him? I'm just trying to get an overview for everybody else, especially if they're going through it already.
Yeah. I don't know if it was gradual or if it was like that when the decision came to get back into the relationship, if it was like
Mhm.
that all just fell off. I couldn't answer
Okay.
that.
Right. But the focus on you that you had been accustomed to doing definitely shifted and it wasn't you, your energies weren't going there anymore.
Yeah.
What else started to take place after that?
At that point in time, let's see, so that was about 6 months into the relationship. And then about 6 months later was when we decided to have a child together. And
Oh,
that was when the narc came out. It was
oh,
as soon as I was pregnant, there was a switch in his eyes. Like it haunts me.
wow.
I saw it in his eyes. I actually saw it happen. And I just became his property. I was no longer my own autonomous individual. I was his property. And to this day, he sees me as his property. He owns me in his mind.
Wow.
So yeah, it's crazy. And we've been separated for a year and a half now. And yeah, I don't think that'll ever go away. I don't know. But he, you know, some of the stuff that he did in the relationship was he actually started recording me because he's an attorney, like we said. And so he recorded me all day. His testimony, I tried to get a protective order at one point. His testimony during the protective order hearing was that he had recorded me all day, every day from August until March. So that's a 7-month period, which is like the level of psychosis that somebody would have to be able to do that, knowing that they were building a case against you, knowing that they were going to use this against you as emotional blackmail in the courtroom when needed, in whatever capacity it was needed, he knew he was going to be using it against me. And so but the level of psychosis there, like that's, almost sociopathic behavior. That goes, I think, beyond just straight narcissism, but I'm not a mental health professional, so.
Yeah. Well, you just know what you don't want in your life.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and that kind of behavior you don't want in your life. I can't think of too many people that actually want that kind of behavior in their life, but that is not the behavior that shows that he cares about your heart, that he cares about your well-being.
No,
not
but
at all.
at the time he was still, sleeping next to me. We were still having conversations about the future. We were still like living as a couple,
And he's recording you for a 7-month time all day long.
Yes.
That, and what's so interesting is they live that way, and it's okay. Not just the person, the knucklehead you were dealing with, but troublemakers like that, these narcissists, they live that way. They think it's okay to set up things to record a person so they can find some kind of way to catch them at doing something so they can be treacherous that way. There is no love in their heart to have a discussion, to just have a discussion about a matter or their insecurities. They're out to cause harm. And that's what it's obvious. Just a little bit you told me in the pre-show. It's obvious. The more and more I looked at it after we were done talking, I was going like, how do people like that get away with stuff? Because they live like.
I mean.
Well, wait. Yeah. We haven't even talked about everything else. So go ahead, keep going. Because
we're not even close.
No, we're not even close. So somebody may be listening, going like, "Well, no, I know he's bad, but no, you gotta listen to the rest she's gonna tell you." As I get quiet again, go ahead.
So let me think. Where do we want to go from here?
Well, at this point, he's recording you. At this point, you've gone through a period of time of that. But what else was happening in between all of these things taking place as he's literally sleeping right next to you, being weird?
Do you mean in between, like when we were together and having a relationship before he started recording? Or
I have to tell you this. Yes, I have to ask. Now you're pregnant, and you said the narc came out, so I'm just going to go back to that because it does stick in my head. So you get pregnant, 6 months pass, and another 6 months in that time frame, you get pregnant, your first pregnancy, and you go to get pregnant, or you get pregnant rather. You said the narc came out. What do you mean by that? And maybe that can be helpful to others when they are experiencing this. What should they be looking for?
How do I articulate this? He just changed. He all of a sudden, it was much more about him. It was much more like we lived in his world, and I would tell him that a lot. Like, I feel like we live in your world. Like, what happened to my world? Where am I?
Right.
We go to your families for every holiday. We go to his sporting events. We go to everything. It was just all about him. And I was like, where do I exist in this relationship? And we would argue about that a lot. Another thing was, he had a habit of staying out till 2 a.m. drinking. And so, and that's, family course abuse right there. We had 3 babies. I had a set of twins, so we had 3 babies in less than 2 years, and he would stay out, at least 3, if not 4 or 5 nights a week until 2 a.m. drinking. And the judge was like, "What? On the nights you were home, you put the babies to bed? You're such a great father." And I was like,
"Oh my!" You're going like, "Wait a minute, time out."
Look. I laugh about this now because I can't even process like how absurd it really is.
You kind of run out of tears after a certain point. You got to laugh about it because it's actually pathetic. So please, note to self, ladies or men, whether it's a female narcissist or a male, I'm telling you, if they don't want to be home, there's a problem with them. Not when it comes to what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about right now, we're not talking about if a woman or a man feels that there's a matter of safety and they got to go seek shelter somewhere. But we're literally talking about him being out and everything has to be his world.
Hmm.
That's a huge red flag, everybody.
Yeah.
Please. It's a huge red flag because if they're that way, then they only get worse and it can get violent
Yes.
because they go from it being about them to financial abuse, to
Yeah.
sexual abuse, to like one of my clients was telling me the things they have gone through with that they went through with their ex were they're trying to have peace of mind and go to bed at night and he's raping her while she's sleeping because they graduate and get worse. They get bad. And when they become perverted, that's bad. But they
Yeah.
start with these things about being out at night, having drinks. I'm with the friends. And it's just the way in which they try to manipulate the world that they've created for you to be forced to live in, like a little box. And he's kind of got you in a little box.
Yeah. He's
He's
got me
kind
in a
of
little
got you.
box.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
How are you work? How is it going with that? I mean, you were taking care of yourself, being a strong woman on your own, and focusing on yourself. And now he's kind of put you in a box.
Yeah, he did it very, very gradually, very, very subtly. And he knew my weaknesses. He knew exactly what to say. He knew exactly where to poke and prod. He knew exactly where I needed some healing. So he would try to give me, artificially gave me that healing, like relationships with my father and with my mom even, and just kind of those things. And he tried to really fill some voids with me, and he tried very, very hard. And
Okay.
looking back, I see how he was doing that and how that's a red flag in itself because, why was
Yes.
I not in
Yes.
therapy? Why? And that's,
Yeah.
I take responsibility for not going to therapy, but still, like, that's not his job. His job is not to heal me.
No,
So,
and not only that, but you're a team. He's supposed to be there to help you and work with you and not
yeah,
exploit you.
yeah,
That's his period. Even if it was just your friend, let alone this is somebody who's going to be your partner for life. He's supposed to be there not to exploit your quote unquote weaknesses. But I got to before you go on. What were the weaknesses? I know you told me a couple of things. I don't know if what would you consider your weaknesses? Because I'm not going to let it come out of my mouth. I'm just going to let you take the lead on that. What would you say they were that he was exploiting?
So I have issues with men in general, trust issues, because, my father was not there when I was growing up. And,
Hmm.
he and I have healed our relationship now. We're actually really good now. But, at the time I was still kind of processing a lot of that stuff.
Right,
And my mom, was not, I didn't have an ideal childhood. Let's just say that.
right,
And
right,
so, I would tell him some of those deep secrets and things, and he would
right,
exploit every single one. And
right.
then in the court system, he totally exploited it. It all just went into
Oh
the
yeah,
court papers, which
yeah,
is so mind-blowingly wrong that the courts even
yeah,
allow that. Like
yeah,
how can you ever trust and be in an intimate relationship when if it ends, this is what you have to go through? Like
yeah.
that's emotional
That's right.
torture right there.
Yeah. Well,
So
and that's what he lives for.
yeah,
He lives for that moment to try to shame you into getting back into a box so that he can continue to have that world that he
yeah,
knows is slipping away because he's awakened a beast which is inside of you, which is who you really are. You're this wonderful person, and he's awakened it now because you've looked back at this history, this timeline of ignorance and dealing with him, and how you've kind of let yourself, you know, be put in this box, and now you're getting out of the box. He doesn't like that, so he's got to try
yeah,
to poke you and try to hit you in your knees to bring you down. And
yeah,
at this point, that you said about not trusting men, and you had already been divorced before, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Right? So
yeah.
so
That's correct.
he's working on the whole abandonment issue kind of thing. He's trying to find a way
Yep,
to manipulate you instead of let you be a free, independent person, a woman who's strong enough to be his partner, and instead he's attacking you.
yep.
At some point, I just have to ask because I didn't ask you this, and it's in my notes when I was looking over for today. How at this point the children were really small or little? I mean, how did the children? Did he have children? Were the children catching on to any of this? Were they?
No,
How were they affected by this?
the kids, my older kids weren't affected until after the separation when the stalking started because, they saw me and my fear and, what I was going through.
Okay, right.
I would say
Mhm.
that was the biggest way that they were affected. And then also abandonment from him because he just left. He didn't say goodbye to my older kids. He just was gone.
What?
And and he blames me for that. And his story is that I came between their relationship, which is he just simply didn't ask to see them. He never made any efforts or attempts to see them whatsoever. So,
Yeah.
but of course it's my fault. It's all, everything is my fault.
Well, yeah, it's always that way because, of course, they don't accept accountability or responsibility. They hide. Narcs will hide behind a label of their job or their profession, or they hide behind a family name. They will hide behind their money. They'll hide behind their possessions, and all they're covering up is their perversion. They have some type of perversion. There's not a narc around that does not have some type of perversion. They could be perverted toward food, toward sex, toward money. Most people want to think it's about sex a lot of times, but a lot of times that's not it for them because that's too much work for them. Power is easy. Power is easy for them because they either have it or they take it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to give it up. They either have power or they take it. So he met somebody like you who was powerful in yourself, a self-generated woman, an entrepreneur, a person who gets up in the morning and has a purpose. So he needed to try to take your power, even in front of your children. But to be the type of a man that leaves his children without a word and tries to blame the mom, that's the normal coward way out. And a lot of guys fall into that category, not simply because they're a narc, but sometimes because they're just plain old-fashioned cowards and they were never taught. But in this case, you're talking about. Did you call him a sociopath? Did I? I would make sure if I got that right.
Yeah, I mean,
okay. So I didn't want to say it. I didn't want it to come out of my mouth. I couldn't remember. What? Say it again. What?
I'm not going to diagnose him because I'm obviously not a mental professional. But there's some behavior there.
Let's just put it this way again. We go back to what we said a little bit earlier that I spouted out. That's just behavior you just can't accept. And when a woman does that'll work. That's the behavior you can't accept, because he is obviously a person that can't be trusted. Unfortunately, though, he has the children. He has the children.
Yes, he does. He won full custody. And part of why he wouldn't have won full custody, but I didn't participate in the court proceedings. And the reason that I didn't participate was because it was a witch hunt. It was not a family, what's in the best interest of the kids. I even pointed that out to the courts where I was like, look through every motion that they've filed. They've cited the best interest of the child statute once. They've used the phrase best interest of the children. I think it was twice. And I pointed that out to the courts. They didn't. None of it mattered. None of it mattered. It was a witch hunt. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not even participating. And the thing is that he uses the kids to continue abusing me. And so stepping away, knowing that the best I could hope for was 50-50 custody. I probably would have gotten it, if I had stayed. Although if I had stayed, I don't think I would be alive right now. So there's kind of that little, minor detail right there.
Yeah, so for people, I'm just going to interrupt. So for people that are listening, they need to, hopefully, or that will watch this later, please, you need to, there is a bigger picture that we even have time to discuss with everybody that may be listening. But the overall picture, I'm just going to do this for everybody. She's not abdicating and tossing up her parental rights, everybody. That's not what's happening here. She's ran into a buzzsaw that a higher power is going to have to deal with, and she's going to need to get a lot of support from the rest of us. The rest of us that are listening, please, if you are on right now and you're listening, call whatever lawyer friend you have or DM September and get to her page and give her some encouragement. She's finding her voice again, and she's giving it out. She needs as much support as possible so that she can retool and get a lawyer that has a backbone, because we're going to get into that later, and you know why I said that. But she has to get a lawyer that has a backbone, that's willing to go to bat for her and is not afraid of her ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, I don't know how to call it. He's your ex.
We had a verbal agreement that we were married, but
her ex is a lawyer. And just a little overview background about him that you told me about, and please correct me if I get it wrong. He actually is very well known in the town, the city or whatever that he's in, where all of the custody aspects came into play. So he knew the judge. His father had been there a number of years, 30 some odd years or something like that. Yeah, long time. So he's embedded there. everything was swayed in his favor.
Yeah.
He painted this picture. It's abuse beyond abuse.
It's abuse beyond abuse. And then so he won full custody of our girls, and then my older kids, he went to their father, collaborated with their father so that he
Uh-huh.
would win full custody of my older kids. For them, they didn't even hold a hearing. I literally didn't even have a hearing, and the judge said, "You get full custody." So I mean, it's that bad. Like, and that's just arrogant to be that corrupt and to not, I mean, that's
Yeah.
arrogance right there. So I
Yeah.
do have people looking into things. There's still.
Yeah.
So I guess the stalking. Let's talk about the stalking for a minute, because
Yes.
I
Yes.
made that comment about not being alive. So after he left the home and we had separated, the conversation between us was, we're taking a breather. This has gotten out of hand. We're fighting too much. We just need a breather. I didn't know anything about the recordings yet. I found out about that later. But that was the conversation between us. We're going to try again, 6 months, a year, let's just spend some time apart and then we'll try again. He was
Right.
still coming over at night for sex. Like, we were still, in some ways still pretending that we were a couple. But then what I started to notice is the way that his friends and family were treating me was like they were getting a different story from what I was getting. And so that was really kind of the thing that triggered me, and then I found a therapist, and immediately my therapist was like, "You ever heard of the narcissist empath dance?" And so then I
There you
started
go.
studying narcissism. I got a couple of books, and as I learned more, I became stronger, and I was like, I don't want any part of this. Like, you need to leave me alone. So I
Yeah.
stopped
There you
taking
go.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wait. High five from a distance. Give me a high five. Give me a high five. There you go, guy. You got to leave me alone. I like
yeah,
that. You should make a
yeah.
shirt. That should be your shirt. You should make a shirt that says that.
Hashtag leave
Just
me alone.
hashtag leave me alone. Narc free. Narc free. Yeah,
Narcissist,
narc
I like
free.
it.
Yeah, there you go.
So So then when I stopped sleeping with him, he started sending gifts so that just to kind of
Oh,
give
really?
me room. Yeah, give me
Really?
room to try to you reel me back in. So I was getting flowers and gift baskets and things like that. Um, and then when that didn't work, he started just covertly entering the home. And so
Oh,
there was a lot of
wow.
financial abuse where everything was in his name. I contributed monetarily to everything, but he kept it all in his name. And so there was a lot of financial abuse. That's his biggest PowerPoint. Um, so the home was
Huge
in his
red flag,
name.
everybody. Huge red
Yeah,
flag, everybody.
yeah,
Please, ladies, men, huge red flag.
yes.
Because
There's,
if you're gonna be a team, you gotta be a team. And a
yeah,
team means that the woman exists. She's a part of the. She's not a slave. She's not. She exists. She's a
yeah,
human being. You put some stuff in her name because you expect to die. You don't put nothing in her name because you expect to dump her, because that's the red flag. He's letting the person know, hey, at some point I can kick you to the curb. Matter of fact, that's why I'm not gonna marry you. I'm gonna keep everything in my name, and you're just you're in the passenger seat.
yep,
That's
yep.
just not right. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were saying. So what else? He's trying to dump gifts. Gifts didn't work, and so then what?
So then he's covertly entering the home. He broke into the house on the most important day of my career. I had planned a conference, and it was the day of the conference. And his intention was that, the alarm had been set. He knew that I had changed the alarm codes. I told him I was changing the alarm codes. And this was before anything got scary. So at the time, it wasn't a stupid thing for me to tell him that. But now, me saying that
Well,
sounds
yeah,
just
hey,
stupid.
you know,
At the time, I still trusted him. I didn't know what he was capable of. So he broke into the house with the intention of my phone going crazy, telling me that somebody was in my house, right? Like, while I'm at this conference that I had spent months and months planning and executing and everything. Um,
mhm.
so so then he just keeps entering the home. Every time he knows that I took the kids camping a lot that summer, and so every time he knew that we were not going to be there, he would come in the house. And he even came in. There was a protective order in place when he came in at one point, at least one time, probably
Mhm.
more. And
Right.
that time he messed with. There was a chandelier that hung above my front door, and it was like
Okay.
this was a 2-story high ceiling. I don't know, 20 feet. What is that? 2 stories, 20 feet ish.
Yeah, about
Um,
say 20 feet. That's fine.
so the
Hmm.
chandelier
Go
hung
ahead.
about halfway down, so none of the kids could have reached it. Like, impossible for kids
Right.
to
Right.
have reached it. It's 10 feet in
Mhm.
the air at least, maybe 12. So I look up one day, And I noticed that it's different. Something is wrong. And so I got a ladder and I climbed up there, and there were fingerprints on it. And then the, you know, the ring that like connects it to the ceiling,
Yes.
that had obviously been moved, because, you know, if you move those after they've been there for years, there's like a dirt or a ring,
Right. Got it.
whatever. So that had obviously shifted. And so I took pictures of everything, took him to court, tried to get another protective order, was like, look, he violated the last protective order. And, you know, and here it's so blatantly obvious that he's been in the house. The police wouldn't take fingerprints because they were like, well, he lived here. What's the point of taking fingerprints? Which, you know, I guess makes sense. But at the same time, they should have done a lot more. They've not done anything. But his testimony at the protective order hearing about that was that he and my older children would use a glass chandelier as a target for Nerf guns. And he says this to the judge, and she bought it. And and then she told me that I'm not credible, and she told him that he is credible. And I was like, hold up. He just told you that he teaches children to use a glass chandelier as a target for Nerf guns, and you're telling me that he's credible and I'm not. Like, really? Is this reality? Like, this is like a really bad movie right here. So, and then he got so arrogant with that he had been kicked out. He had been hacking into the home security system. I guess I forgot to say that part. So he was hacking into the home security system. And he had been kicked out by the security company. I'd gone to the security company, taken them the restraining order. But then the day that he won that protective order hearing, the security company had to let him back in because he owned the security system, because everything was in his name.
Okay. For the security, that's right.
Yeah,
okay.
He owned it. So the security company had no choice but to let him back in because he won the protective order hearing. He was so arrogant that he didn't even wait a day. That same day, he hacked into my security system again. And I use the word hacked because it is hacking. He had an account that he intentionally set up a bridge account. So this security company, you can have what's called a bridge account, which means if you own like multiple properties and have their security system installed in different properties, you can use a single login to view all of your different properties.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So he intentionally installed this company's security system on the new house that he purchased for himself after we separated, so that he could get a bridge account, so that he could watch and, you know, have access to my security system. So like I said, he was so arrogant, he didn't even wait a whole day. Like later that night, after he won that protective order hearing, he went back in, and I got a notification. It was the last notification I ever got, but it said that he had changed.
You got a notification from the security company.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. He had changed my email address, taken it off the account, and put an alternative one of his email addresses in place of mine, so that I would never know if he was doing anything in the security system or things like that. So the day that I lost the protective order hearing, I had been staying with my kids in a women's shelter. And so when I lost that hearing, the first thing that I did was I went home and I just completely cut off all power to the system. I didn't do anything to it because I didn't want to like be accused of vandalism or anything like that. It was a hardwired installed one. So I cut off all power. I took the batteries out. I just, you know, completely shut it down and bought a new system that he had no even knowledge about.
Good for you. Good for you.
So that took way too long. I should have done that way sooner. But you know, when you're in trauma brain and you're in that kind of survival mode, you don't think clearly. So
well, you know, and the other thing is you're correct what you're saying, but just possibly consider this, food for thought. This is a whole new experience for you dealing with.
Yes.
I mean, we're not talking about somebody that just wants to just knock on the door and see that you're not home and break in and take something of your physical possession. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about narcissism, and we're talking about the way these toxic people can be. They literally are perpetrators and predators, just like a molester, just like somebody who rapes someone, just like someone who is out to murder someone. They want to emotionally murder the person that they say they love.
Yeah.
They and not like once. They want to, as it were, rape that person emotionally over and over again. So it's understandable when a person is a victim, let alone a survivor of such a situation, that they find that they have maybe made choices and decisions that they wish they would have done differently, But the reality of it is that you did the best you could in the moments that you had to deal with that situation at the moment. And
Yeah.
it's easy for others sometimes, friends or family, to go like, hey, look, or third parties come out of the blue and go like, hey, why didn't you do that? Hey, look, time out for a second. Have you been in my shoes? As one
Right.
of my clients told me, they said their family member was telling them, well, why didn't you do this? Like, look, time out. I thought this person cared about me. If
Yeah.
people go through that with their parents or other, so I think you did a marvelous job just to get to this point
Well, thank
without
you.
being locked up, and we're having this discussion because you're in jail. You have handled yourself exceptionally well, extremely well. But
Thank
now
you.
we're looking at I want to go back to so many different things. I'm going to try to pick one here. Okay, so you take the batteries out. You make sure he can't have some type of visual access to your life and what's going on. But I got to go back to this thing that's the women's shelter. At what point did you enter a woman? What happened before you entered the women's shelter that landed you in a woman's shelter?
It was actually my second stay at the shelter. The first
Oh,
time that I
okay.
went to the shelter, it's funny because I don't remember the exact incident that happened, and people ask me about this one, and at first I think I blocked it out. I don't remember the exact
Yeah,
incident
it
that
happens.
happened
It
that
happens.
made me go, but I do remember, I remember very clearly the night that I went, the woman who checked me in was like the most empathetic person I've ever experienced. She was so non-judgmental, and she just listened, and she allowed me to feel heard and seen and cared about.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
she was like, I thank God for that night just because I got to meet her and experience that
yeah,
level of empathy from somebody. That was
yeah.
amazing. So when I went that time, I was by myself. The kids were with their dad that weekend. But then because he was hacking into the home security system, that's when I went back the second time. And that was Columbus Day weekend. So it happened. So what happened was he hacked in at 11:15 p.m. on Thursday night. I was already asleep. So that right there scares the crap out of me because I think he had intentions for that night. Whatever stopped him, I don't know, but thank God it did. Um, so 11:15 p.m. that night, and then the next morning, I hadn't looked at my phone. It must have been a really hectic morning getting kids out the door and ready for school and everything, because I hadn't even looked at my phone. So we're in
Okay.
the car. I'm driving the kids to school, and it was the first time that I looked at my notifications for the day, and I had a text message from the security company saying that he had logged in, and I just like the surge of adrenaline, because by this time I knew he was a stalker. I knew what was going on by this time.
You know what was going on.
And,
Okay.
I just have this surge. Like I've never experienced that much adrenaline in my body before that or since then.
Wow.
But it was just one of those awful, awful moments. So I drop the kids off at school and I go back home and I try to kick him out of the system, and I try every possible way that I can think of, but it was like he was sitting there watching and waiting for the notifications, and he would get right back in, like
Very back in.
right back in. And I would just get a notification that he's logged back in, and I was like, and so
You would
finally,
get right.
so then, so I called the women's shelter because I was like, this isn't going to work, and I'm not sleeping in a house that he has access to. So I called the women's shelter, and they said, and they had told me previously, the first time that I stayed there, they said, look, I hope nothing happens when you have the kids, because we don't have room for 7 children. Like there's no possible way that we can house you and 7 children. And so I called them when he hacked into the security system, and I told them what was going on. And of course, they already had some background because I'd been there before. And they
Right,
said,
right,
get
right.
over here now. They said, we'll move whoever we have to move. We'll do whatever we have to do. Just
Oh,
get here
awesome.
now. So,
Cool.
so I did. And like I said, that was Columbus Day weekend. So when you get a protective order, you have to be at the courthouse very, very first thing in the morning. And that was Friday morning. By the time I got the notification, it was already too late, and I had the kids, and like there was no way I could get to the courthouse and get that protective order on that Friday. But then it was Columbus Day weekend. So Monday was a holiday too. So I couldn't get to the courthouse until Tuesday morning. And so that's how we stayed at the women's shelter until Tuesday morning. But then when we went back, he knew that we were at the women's shelter. I think something came out in court. I don't remember. But so he knew that we were there. Well, then we had a court hearing sometime in November, and it was the temporary orders hearing. And that was my best day in court. That was the day that I stood up to all of those attorneys. And the judge that day was like not fooled by him for a second. The judge was pissed at the end of that hearing.
Oh,
But he
cool.
retired like a week later. I was like,
Oh
no.
no! Because I was ready to ask you what happened to that guy. Now we know.
Yeah,
Now we know.
he
All right.
retired. He was fed up with it. But yeah, he was pissed. At the end of that hearing, he looked at him, and the judge looked at, this person, and he was like, I'm putting it in the minutes that you're not encouraging these children's relationship with their mother, and said
No.
it
Yes. Yes.
in a very stern tone. But then the judge who oversaw the final orders, who also didn't grant me a protective order, and same person, she didn't even take that into consideration, which the opinion of another judge is supposed to hold
Of
a
another
lot
right.
of weight.
Yeah.
So the fact that, that's just another thing there. But so yeah, so that's when the second time that we were in the women's shelter. And then I stayed in a women's
I
shelter.
have to.
Oh, go
Before
ahead.
you tell me that, please don't lose that thought. But please, if I don't know if you can see the screen or not, you're getting some encouragement there. At least Survivor Inside says that was that's so scary to tell the experience that you're going through. So others can see that you've been through a lot, and I just want you to know that people do recognize that. But now you ended up at a women's shelter again?
Well, yeah, because I fled. So I finally got to a point
Wait,
where,
is this the third time? That's what I'm trying to get. Is this like the third time now that you?
yeah.
Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead. Please tell us.
So I fled. I got to a point where there's something called a mosaic threat assessment, which you can go online, and it'll, if you've got a stalker or an abuser, it'll go through, it asks you a bunch of questions and everything, and then it'll kind of assess what your level of threat is. So highest is a 10. If he scores a 10, like, you might already be dead, basically. He scored a 9.
So one more time. I'm sorry, please repeat it again one more time for anyone out there that's listening that may be going through this or is heading in that direction. What is it again? It's called what?
The mosaic threat assessment.
The mosaic threat assessment. Please keep that in mind if you find yourself in this situation or worse. Go ahead. You were saying, September?
Well, and I think that the mosaic threat assessment was incredibly helpful to me because I already knew this intuitively. I knew that I was in extreme danger, but then to have it actually quantified and to see, in this threat assessment that they use for Supreme Court justices and people like that, to have it in front of me like that was like, get out of here and get out of here now. If you want to be around for your children when they're older, you need to go.
You need to go.
Yeah. And, and if you look at what's happened, I mean, he's literally taken my entire world from me. He took my home, he took my cars, he took all of my money, he took my children from me, he took everything, my career, literally everything he took from me, and he has no guilt or conscience about any of this whatsoever. Is it really that far-fetched to think that he would take my life too? I mean, he's taken everything. So
no remorse. None whatsoever.
No.
So you deciding to find a safe place where you cannot be found or bothered would make sense for you to go in a direction like that. Because after what was your threat assessment? I'm just curious to ask. What was his threat assessment?
He was a 9 out of 10.
I was going to say, man, I can't see him being less than an 8. But
no, he was a 9.
He was in. Wait. Let's clarify. He's a 9 in a bad way. First of all, let's clarify. He wasn't a 9. He wasn't a 9 in a good way. He was a 9 in a bad way. So I'm gonna read something back to you here. So please, I'm looking at if you can look at the screen if yours shows it or not. But Survivor Inside says yes. Well done for getting out, September, and taking steps to protect yourself and your kids. She gives you a little heart there. You're awesome and strong. I tried to tell her that. From the day when we met. She's awesome and strong. And thank you so much for sharing your story. See, all of us recognize that you have a measure of strength, but your character is awesome because it's obvious in your tone. You have no quit in you now that you've been awakened. That's why I said earlier, there's this monster inside that's been awakened. The mama bear has been awakened inside of you. So. So tell us some more that you can remember from this timeline that took place after that.
So then, the stalking was still going on, and I was still living in fear, and there were a lot of instinctual things that I knew were going on. There were a lot of scary nights. There were a lot of nights that I would sleep at girlfriends' houses, and like we would leave my car in the Walmart parking lot, and then she would drive me, and like crazy stuff like that. Like nobody should have to live like this, right? And so then I take the threat assessment, and I went to an event with some girlfriends, and there was one woman there who we were more like acquaintances. We've become closer now, but she and I were more of acquaintances than actual friends at the time. But she looked at me and she said, "I've been in a stalking situation before. I know what you're going through." She said, "I know people.
Oh,
I'm a phone call away. If you need me, I'm a phone call
oh,
away."
wow.
And so that
That
kind
is
of
so cool.
simmered with me for a couple of days there. And
Right.
I don't remember how many days it was, but I think it was definitely less than a week. And I just
Right.
couldn't get that out of my head, like somebody can help me, kind of a thing. And so
Right.
finally
Right.
one day I took that threat assessment, and as soon as I took that threat assessment, I called her and I said, "I need help, and I need help now." And
Oh,
she said, "All right, sit tight. I'll call you back in a minute." So then she basically got me a plane ticket. I didn't even know where I was going. She just said, "Get on the plane." And so,
wow.
that was an incredibly difficult period because I knew I was going to have to say goodbye to my kids, and that was going to be the last time that I was going to see them for a while. And so, if we get into that, I'm going to start crying. So, but where I ended
I
up
understand.
but where I ended up going was Hawaii. And thank God she sent me to Hawaii. And I was on the island of Kauai. And as soon as I got there, everybody started telling me, without even knowing much about my story, they were like, "This is where people come to heal. There's something about this island that just heals people." And what I did is I used it as my healing, I don't know, helper, I guess. And I was still
Yeah.
in
Uh-huh.
therapy, and I was still doing what I needed to do to take care of myself. But every single time something would happen where I would get a motion that they filed, or I would get an email from his attorney, or, whatever it was, something stressful, something that caused that stress response, I would go straight to the water, and I would just let the water just heals you. That ocean water, it just
Right.
heals you. And so I would just get in the water, and, I cried in that water. I I cried a lot in the ocean out there in Hawaii. But thank God that that's where I was able to go. It was a beautiful healing experience.
You're gonna make me cry in a second.
But what I
No,
learned,
keep going. Go
yeah,
ahead. So the water was healing. Go ahead. Go
the
ahead.
water, yeah, the water. So I was staying in a women's shelter. I spent the first 2 months there in a women's shelter, and that was another interesting one because when I got there, I called them, told them, a little bit of my story. They said they were a little bit hesitant because I'm not from Hawaii, and they were a little bit hesitant. They said, "Come on over. We'll give you a safe place for tonight, and we'll talk." And so I went to the women's shelter, and when I got there, the director was there, and we talked for a few minutes, but I was stressed, and it was just, you're in trauma brain. I mean, really, you're in
Yeah.
trauma
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she basically said, "All right, I'm going to let you sleep here for tonight. You're not from Hawaii. I just can't let you stay more than one night, but go, get safe for tonight. Just rest a little bit, and then we'll talk again tomorrow." So the next day, I talked to her again, and I told her more and more of my story. And the more I told her, the more by the end of the conversation, she was like, "You've got a 30-day pass. You're good. We just want you to be safe."
Oh, that's cool.
And he did end up finding me in Hawaii, which was part of why I left Hawaii. So the stalking still hasn't stopped. I mean, still hasn't stopped. He doesn't know where I am now. But yeah, he did still find me in Hawaii. And I'm pointing all of this out to the police, to the family court. Like, look, he's
Right.
still stalking, guys. Come
Yes,
on.
that bought. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just, none of it matters. That's what's so crazy about it, is none of it matters. And that
You
was,
think?
go ahead.
No, no, no. What you're gonna say? I want to hear what you're gonna say. Was more important.
That,
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I guess that was another piece of why I fled, is because there was a period of time there before I fled where I was thinking, you know what, I actually think he's going to get me. I don't think I'm going to come out of this alive, but at least he's going to rot in prison. Like, I've left enough of a paper trail that
Wow.
he's going to rot in prison. And then one day
Yeah.
it clicked, and I was like, no, he's not. Look at what he's already gotten away with. He is
He's gonna
not.
get. He's gonna get out.
He's going to kill me, and he's going to get away with it. And so So the decision for me was, are my kids better off with a mother who's far away, or are they better off with a mother who's dead? And I would rather be there for them. If I never do get custody, you know, no matter what happens, I would rather be able to be there for them later, because at some point they're going to need to heal, and they're going to come to
Yeah.
me when they're ready
Yeah.
to heal.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're gonna come. That's because who you are and the character of who you are as a person, as their mom, is not gone. It's inside of them. There it's not necessarily memories. They know how you nurtured them or tried to protect them. They know who generated you having to run. See, children are so good at knowing justice better sometimes than adults. You know, I lose you there. Are you still there? So children know who is being unfair.
Yeah.
As children are real big on that.
Yeah.
They may not have a voice yet. They may not have the power yet. But when those two things come together, when their voice comes out and they have the power to, or has become of age, the two come together. I mean, whether it's a Lifetime movie to a Spielberg movie, people always write movies or books show that children come of age and they know in their subconscious who was the victim and who was the villain. They cannot be fooled. They cannot be fooled. Adults can be fooled easily. Adults can be played and can be fooled and hear these stories and the stories are not true or this or that and be lied about one or another. But in your case, your children will come to your aid. I have not seen one instance that it has not been true. It always works in the innocent party's favor in the long run. The children end up hearing the real story after they make up their mind. I want to hear the real story. At some point, they're going to say, hey, you know what? I've heard your side for X amount of years. I want to take 1 year and I want to go find out what mom's side of the story is. And he doesn't, trust me, he don't want that. Because that's a part of his narcissistic supply. That's his supply. That's how he remembers having power over you, is looking at them. But as soon as you did, you're getting centered in your life and going like, well, they got to have something to come back to. But I'm not going to quit fighting for them. That's kind of when we were kind of talking. I noticed that when we were talking. But you're like, hey, let me set something up where I am and who I am. Because believe me, when they come, they're not going to be like slow walking to you. They're going to come running. Yeah. And they're going to be ready for you to have open arms, and your day is coming without a doubt. I'm sorry, I got me on my soapbox because I hate the injustice. But you know, he's not getting away with anything. Trust me, and he's not happy anyhow. That's what's so crazy. He's not over there wherever. Yes, it's crazy. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I get off my box. I'm getting back down off my box.
But part of what I'm doing, part of why I'm speaking out, part of I'm leaving a feminist trail on the internet, basically, and my story and all of that kind of stuff, women's empowerment and things like that. Not being anti-men in any way, shape, or form, but just trying.
No, you're not. You're not. I noticed that. Mm-hmm.
But that's for my girls. I have 5 daughters. That's for my girls. Oh. So, you know, as soon as they can get on the internet, they're going to see all of that, and it's going to build them up so much. And that's well, the last, you know.
And the last thing you want is for them to end up in a relationship with a knucklehead like that.
Yes.
So they need to hear. I can say it because I'm way over here and he can't beat me up. He can't beat me up. But what I was going to so he can't stop me. So what I was going to say is, as we add a little levity to this craziness, because that's about the only thing you can do sometimes in this situation, other than cry and get angry. So you got a situation in which your daughters need to see what it's like to be a survivor of narcissism, a survivor of being abused, because, I mean, there was financial abuse. He has this narcissistic personality disorder. He's using his position and title as a lawyer and in that town, city that he's living in, to literally chase you out so that you can't be heard, to silence your voice, to make sure that you're not even recognized as a truthful, trustworthy person. And he's doing that for the adults, but the children are watching him be a liar. They're watching him perpetrate this lie. You have not been forgotten. I guarantee I don't have to talk to your children. it's a fact. It always turns out that they are the best witnesses to what actually happened.
Yeah.
And they will be a witness in your behalf. And it may just the fact that they come and tell you that they saw what happened and not anybody else. That's the biggest bonus, that they're able to look at you and go like, hey, we know really what happened, Mom. It's okay. We're here now, and everything's gonna be okay. And that day is coming. But
Yeah.
right now, I like the fact that we were talking before today. You're not gonna lay down on this.
No.
You know, I was when we were talking that night, I was listening, I was going like, I'm trying to see it in her voice, and you just kept sounding stronger. But you had this calm coolness, like a James Bond kind of. I'm not a big James Bond fan, but I picked him. But I'm trying to think of somebody else. But you had this little. I know what it is. Okay, so the movie Enough with Jennifer, I think it's Jennifer Lopez.
Yes. Yes.
That's what you kind of had this thing of like, okay, I see where you're coming at. Okay, I see. We're gonna have to do this, and yes, your demeanor, though you're extremely intelligent and very wonderful person, you've got this characteristic that you got a little dog in you. You got a little fight in you that's been awakened, and I'm happy to hear that. And you fight for your children. You fight for your children. It is not going to be a waste of your time. You're not doing it in vain, and I'm very proud of you to be that type of a person that came into my life to be able to talk to. But you say you have some other things in the works. You have some other things in the works. You keep those things going. We don't need to be talking all about that out in public because, you know, sometimes the best thing to do is people see your action instead of hear your plan. Exactly. Right. But I got to get to some notes here just for a minute before you have to run away. So you got to Hawaii and you felt heard and seen. You got to the women's shelter before. The women's shelter initially, when you were going, you felt heard and seen. But when you got to Hawaii, you felt of some healing that took place, and you were feeling that. At some point, your children are going to need to feel heard and seen, because trust me, living with a narc, they don't feel heard and seen. They're missing out being with you. They're not getting well-balanced nurturing with the narc and any of his family or friends. So you're getting a head start, because what you're getting, you're going to have to give to them. Because they're going to need to feel heard and seen. But you and I kind of played the little game, not game, but the sessions. When I do a session with people, we did the dictionary thing, you and I. I know you remember that. We did the dictionary thing. And in the dictionary, we looked at a certain word, and we looked at the synonyms and the antonyms. We did. That's what we did. That's what we did. And the narc came out to be a person who was hateful, small, and ordinary. But you, on the other hand, you came out to be a person who was cool, admirable, and remarkable, phenomenal, and incredible. You don't have to agree with it, but I guarantee you, people that will see this recognize that you're one cool cat. You can keep it down, but it's boiling inside. Yes, it's boiling. Yeah, it is. But your demeanor is cool, and that's what you're going to have to be for your children.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna need relief from being with a crazy person. They're not an adult like us that can kind of process it differently. They're trying to just be happy, and he's putting a damper on that. And it's gonna be okay. Somebody's looking out for them without a doubt. But you are phenomenal in the way you've handled this craziness. And you just had something again today. You mentioned at the very beginning that he's still bothering you today. You're taking all of this to the best of your ability, and you've got good support where you are there. You're okay?
I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna I'm gonna read a couple of things that are on your page that I find interesting.
Okay.
Okay. On your page, you put, "I have become unabusable." What do you mean by that?
I mean,
what do you mean by that?
I feel it in my heart and soul now that there's a difference, and it's been a shift. I won't date right now because I still, when I've been attracted to a man in the last year and a half since our separation, I still feel that kind of almost clinginess, like neediness. And so as long as I'm still feeling that, like I'm not. Yeah. It's not worth it. You know, if this is the result of that, then it's just not worth it. Do me a favor.
Do me a favor. It's telling me right now, I got 20 seconds. and then I have to reboot. So I'm going to reboot, and we're going to talk about the clinginess and move on to some other things. I'll be
Okay.
right back. Everybody, we'll be right back, and we'll talk some more. Okay?
Sounds good.
Be back in just a